Yeah, it was 120 players everywhere I was at, and I never got an assistant. I always begged. Recruiting got new people every single time. I was like, hey, we got recruiting, but player development is like retention. I'm actually gonna do a podcast episode of that. Like recruiting is the lifeblood of the program. Well, player development is the veins. You can, if you got a good program, you can keep people there, keep the blood in the vein, retention, whatever. So the big thing I learned from that I'm learning now in this space is what questions are they asking? So a kid comes up, I got a 22-year-old, and he's got a couple kids. The mother of his children is moving into town to take his kid to school. She's looking for a job. Hey, do you know anybody? Okay, so I'm listening. His number one priority right now is finding a job for the mother of his kids, which means that he's got to find a school as well. So not only do I provide value for what he wants, what's the next step? Where's the school? So let me check out a school. Let me get with alumni. Hey, blah, 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 blah. What do we have? Does anybody have anything open? Or let me go to alumni event or a letter winner event. Hey, everybody, I'm shaking hands. Got something for you. If anybody's hiring, please let me know. I have a qualified candidate that's ready to go right now, right? And so you're listening to that. So that's my programming for that. They may never come to a resume deal. They may never come to whatever, but because I provided that value for them to not only find a job for their significant other, but then also include a school. Now they're like, oh, he's always one step ahead. So then when I do talk about resumes, they're like, and this actually happened where at a university I was at, me and this guy, just we were cool, but we weren't close. But we got close when I did something for him. And I was able to have a great conversation with him about the NFL and what scouts are asking. And like he was like, I don't want to do this or blah blah blah. I said, look, man, they're gonna come ask me questions, and I'm not lying. So here's two things you can do. You can do it this way that I tell you, and you can just stop. And then what happened was it ended up going well. We became close. He was a second round pick, and so it was pretty awesome. But it goes back to that. Or I have a freshman who says, "Coach, my roommate, he don't clean up." All right, so now I know we got to talk about conflict resolution because
Mhm.
what we don't talk about is it's gonna be a fight at fall camp, and I'll be sitting there like, why are they fighting? Like, and so you do programming that way, or if you got the player who you realize like they're checked out, like they know they've had injuries, or we keep recruiting the kid better than them, and they're like, I need to exit. So I'm talking to them about, okay, how do we do this? Or the
Yeah.
player that's medically disqualified. We have to find a transition, different things like that. So you're listening to the conversation, you're watching everything as you do programming, because I'm taking any chance you gave me, I was taking it. But you're kind of watching different things, relationships, like, hey,
Mhm.
let's talk about relationships. And not only, a lot of people talk about, romantic relationships, but it's relationships like it's some people you need to say no to. Like you keep getting, I remember I had one player said, man, Trouble keep chasing after me. I said, nah, Trouble ain't chasing after you. Trouble's trying to run away from you. You were running 4-2 sprint to that. But it's with that program, it's just listening to what guys have. They're going to tell you. And someone told me, it's an old school coach he's with, where he's like, Jones, if you just listen, they'll tell you everything you want them to do for you. And so I just listen, and that's the program because it's a lot. It's, hey, I want to get my master's. Do you think they'll allow me to get my master's? Like, I want to get my doctorate after that. Okay, well, cool. Let me go talk to academics and I'll get back. But you have to get back. What I learned, and I got better at this, you have to get back with them within 24 hours. And then you're able to say they're in your office and you're like, hey, where's your resume look like?
Mhm.
You know what? I never made one. What does it look like? Hey, here's a copy of mine. Tell me what you don't understand. Or you say, hey, man, like, you ever been in the community? I know you drive by that elementary school to go to your apartment. You ever been in there to meet with kids? Or, hey, have you ever like, you know, how you doing? So
Mhm.
that's just how I did it. It kind of got to a point where one of the blessings that happened at Baylor for me that I didn't realize was a blessing in the role was I got a lot of what I was promised I was going to do in player development didn't happen. So I had to figure out how to actively be a player development professional without having the time I was promised or told I was going to have. And so that was a blessing in disguise because I had no excuse. I was like, I got to go to them. And so it ended up working out pretty well for me in that arena.
Yeah.